Greetings, citizens, and welcome to another adventure of the Real Comic Heroes podcast. My name's Travis.
And I'm Patrick.
And I'm Scott Carelli from duelinggenre.com.
Welcome, Scott.
Thanks.
Well, it's great to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Good. I'd like to welcome any new listeners. Each episode, we review a movie, sometimes from the comic book genre, but in this case, from the world of sci-fi. You can find our list of movies over at reelpodcastnetwork.com. This week, we're looking for an old friend. And Patrick, what are we reviewing this week?
Star Trek 3, Where's Spock? That's what I wrote down.
Yeah, the lesser-known alternate title.
Search for Spock.
Search for Spock's Gold
Yeah.
was also an alternate.
Gotta have that alliteration. Where's
Yeah.
Waldo? Search for Spock.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I wrote down the taglines from
Good.
IMDb, one of which is more of a synopsis than a tagline, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But
I purposely stopped looking at those because I know that you're going to share them on the show, and that's like kind of become my favorite part.
So let's see. I'll start with the one that's more of a synopsis. We've got Kirk must battle the Klingons to protect the Genesis planet and save a friend's life. It's a bit wordy.
A little bit.
Then we've got a dying planet, a fight for life. Better.
Okay.
The needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many.
Okay.
So, a little reversal of what Spock says at the end of the Star Trek 2
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and later on in this movie.
Right.
Then we've got the final voyage of the Starship Enterprise.
Gee, spoilers.
Yeah. I don't know if they're trying to be cute, tricking people to think it's the last movie or something.
Right.
But...
Well, and they even say in the trailer, like, this is the final voyage or final journey of the Enterprise. Like, and I think at one point they actually show the ship blow up. So they weren't
Nice.
hiding it.
No.
And then
Well,
the
I mean that continues today. Every time
Yeah,
the ship blows up, it's always in the trailer.
That's true. Yeah.
Every single time.
And the last one's Join the Search.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. I think the dying planet fight for life is the best one.
Yeah.
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 It's the most poetic. I like that one.
Yeah.
I love
So-
the needs of the many and needs of the one. Like, I love that, in context in the movie. I don't know if it's right for the tagline of a poster,
No, I don't think so.
especially with
Yeah,
that, being like the last line of the movie. I don't know.
It makes me
Yeah.
think like a bunch of people are going to die because of Spock.
Yeah, it's a little meaningless without the context of what the movie's actually about.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the truth is, and I'll put this right at the beginning. This is a terrible title for this movie. Because nobody's searching for anything.
They know exactly where he is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's
mean,
that search once they find
right.
like the empty coffin, but
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
like what was that? Like maybe a mile of searching,
Right.
something like that. But
yeah. So okay. You want to go over the act breaks for the fine listeners at home, or
Yeah, we'll
on
try.
wherever? Okay. So Act 1, we have that wrapping up right around where Papa Spock comes and talks to Kirk.
mhm.
Yep.
Act 2, what are we saying? That's David's death now?
Yeah, I think
Is
so.
at the end of Act 2, and then we've got Act 3 towards the end of the movie and it's kind of broken up because of the whole Spock section, but so Act 1, begin.
All right.
You want to go first, Travis?
Sure. So Well, first I'll start with a question. What
Okay.
are your thoughts on the replaying of the climactic moment from the previous movie, a la the Rocky franchise, and obviously this? I mean,
Yeah.
what do you guys think of just seeing? And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this movie has a prologue as well as having an epilogue. So everything before the credits is the Kirk Spock interaction at the end of Wrath of Khan. So how do you guys feel about it?
While I do think it's kind of cheesy, especially with the Star Wars Special Edition thing that they do, where they remember the trailers for Star Wars Special Editions where it was like a TV playing, and then it was like, for years you've seen Star Wars
Okay.
like this, and then and then it was like, but now, and then a
Yeah.
TIE fighter flies by, and you're like, oh my god, it's on the big screen again. So that was definitely getting flashbacks of that. But I think that as cheesy as it is, I think it's necessary, because what's Star Trek without Spock? And we're going to have a whole movie without Spock in it. So at the very least, we can have bookends with Spock in it.
Yeah.
But I would argue that if they had it in their budget, and they probably didn't, I would have preferred a prologue that was a flashback to a happier time with the whole crew, and then just like an abrupt cut to them shooting the casket off, something like that. I think would have been a little bit I think it would have been a little less cheesy of an opening than this was, because it is literally just using someone else's movie to amp up the drama of your movie, which not my favorite thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I like cheese apparently. I don't know. I just liked it just because this movie basically starts right after the last one ended, so it's a nice little reminder to the folks, because I don't know. I was even having trouble remembering exactly all that happened at the end, and I just watched it a few months ago.
Yeah.
I can't imagine in the theater having to wait for however long to watch the third movie.
2 years.
So I don't know. I give it a pass just because, like you said, I'm used to it in other movies, and it doesn't bother me that much.
Yeah, these sorts of things, that's why they're always like that in the Rocky movies, is because, you're not expected to have seen the movie since it was in theaters like you are now. They're like, oh yeah, you've seen this movie like 6 times, haven't you? In the past two years, that's how this works now. So yeah, it's definitely passable.
Right.
I'm just thinking about it from a modern context, I guess.
Yeah, the color scheme they had going on with the blue tint to it was kind of cheesy.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I don't know if they were trying to say this is a blue, sad, somber thing, or what.
I'm not. I don't know.
It was really messing with me because for some reason I watched this on iTunes, and it just decided to default to French as the language. So it starts with the smaller blue, image in the center of the screen, and it's Spock speaking. I thought, I don't remember him speaking in Vulcan to Kirk, because it was obviously a foreign language. And first it took me a minute, and then once Kirk responded and it was in French, I'm like, what the hell? So, that took me out of it.
I didn't realize the Vulcan language was so romantic.
Right. I feel like I should be drinking wine and eating cheese. But once I figured, once I got that cleared up, I'm a fan of the replaying those last moments. I think with it being such an important scene from Wrath of Khan, and like Patrick said, it's been 2 years since you've seen the movie. I think because of that passage of time, and because it does pick up directly afterwards, I also think that helps, provide that reminder of Spock's sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And the truth of it is that the writer of the movie and producer Harv Bennett, said on the commentary that he did this because he was used to being in the world of television, where it was more standard to do a recap of the previous week.
Yeah, so previously on Star Trek.
Basically, so it kind of stemmed from that, and
Interesting.
Yeah.
Speak. Impressive. They can make planets.
Oh, yes. New cities, homes in the country. Your woman at your side, children playing at your feet. And overhead, fluttering in the breeze, the flag of the Federation. Charming.
Yeah, I had no idea Christopher Lloyd was in this.
Okay. I wondered what...
And I knew who he was at the exact moment he spoke.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't even trying. And it was very distracting. Because, like, throughout the movie, I just could not buy him as a bad guy.
Okay.
I don't know why. Like, it's just his voice and, like, his weird behavior. I don't know. He's just a bizarre guy, like, in this movie. I mean, I'm sure that stretches into his, just how he is, but I just never... I don't have much experience with Star Trek and Klingons, really.
Yeah.
So I only know Worf. I think that's his name from the Picard series.
Next Gen, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I have in my head as a Klingon. So what he was doing, I didn't quite take with the same grain of seriousness. Like, even though he was trying to act serious, I don't know. I just didn't. I wasn't enjoying him at all.
Gotcha.
I don't necessarily disagree. But I will say, in his defense, the Klingons, while they had been in the original series, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there'd only been one other instance of this kind of Klingon before now. I think they were in the motion picture, right?
Correct. Yeah, they were destroyed by V'ger, like in the pre-credits, maybe.
Yeah, it wasn't very long.
Yeah. So I don't think anyone knew what the Klingons were like yet.
Yeah. There was no... I mean, because they're completely different from where they were in the original series.
Right.
They were more like Romulans, if anything.
And they all had like Fu Manchu mustaches. Yeah. They were like kind of like Asian inspired, sort of.
Kind of a cross between how Khan was shown in the original series, very dark skinned. I mean, Indian. Kind of mixed from that with like I said, a Romulan or someone else.
Like a Genghis Khan.
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah.
And so then when they remade them in the motion picture, we had that like one scene with them. And so like I think when they came here and they're like, oh, okay, we have to actually make like real characters now. I don't think anyone really knew exactly what to do. And so they're like, yeah, I guess he's Christopher Lloyd, but he's a sociopath. I don't know. And so he just, I mean, yeah. And I think too, I would imagine that at the time it wasn't nearly as distracting as it is now in a post Back to the Future world.
Yeah.
I think that's what really hurts it is it's the retrospect, I think, is that you look at it and you're like, yeah, you're like Doc Brown, but you're dressed as a Klingon. Like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't blame Christopher Lloyd for that. I think he was doing the best he could.
Yeah. I always just picture either Doc Brown or his character from Taxi. And they're both really bizarre characters. And I don't know. It's just, we went from Khan to this, so it's kind of jarring to me.
Yeah.
Like, Khan was such a great villain, and I don't know. It just,
yeah. I definitely like Krug in theory more than I like him in execution.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, the idea of the villain of this being basically a Klingon terrorist cell, I think is really interesting as a concept, because the Klingon Federation, they're trying to find peace with the Federation, and that's really cool. And then you have this guy who's like, I'm not really into that, so I'm gonna try and ruin it for everybody.
Right.
And I don't know. I think that's cool in theory, but yeah, in execution, maybe Christopher Lloyd wasn't the best choice.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear where that came from, whose idea it was to let's get that guy from Taxi, because yeah, I don't know that he had done a whole lot. I mean, I'm sure he had acted for years, but I think his what he was known for was Taxi. So
yeah, well, it was Leonard Nimoy's idea, because he was a big fan of him from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's what he saw Christopher Lloyd in, and was like, that's who I want for this part. Which is, I don't know where the connection there is, but then again, we can't forget that they didn't know what Klingons were yet. So
yeah.
Okay.
That's a big part of the equation for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't know that part. I thought they were already established at this point.
Not really. No.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think if I'm not mistaken, I think it's not until Next Gen, and then especially Undiscovered Country.
Yeah.
I think those are the two things that really like solidified
Big time.
what
Yeah.
Klingons became. Yeah.
And those were happening right around the same time. So I think Undiscovered Country, I knew they were using the same
90?
90, and then so and
then Next Gen started in 86, so like 2 years after this.
Right.
Yeah. So
Okay. So Scott, you got anything?
Yeah, like as far as Act 1, I think I like the stuff with I don't know, like I just want to talk about sort of the general sadness that's going on in Act 1, of just like melancholy, because I like it. It's weird after watching the end of Wrath of Khan, because the end of Wrath of Khan, they're like, Kirk is literally saying something along the lines of like, I've never felt younger.
Yeah.
Like, know, and it feels like this big up moment. And then it's just like, oh, right. But my friend's dead.
Right.
Oh, I'm really bummed now. It's a weird combination of things. But I like all the melancholy and how they play with it, and play with the expectations of the movie being called Search for Spock. Like you have that bit where someone is broken into Spock's room.
Bones, what the hell are you doing? Have you lost your mind? Help me, Jim. Take me home. Bones, we are home. Then perhaps it's not too late. Climb the steps, Jim. Climb the steps of Mount Seleia.
Yeah, and I like that, and I love DeForest Kelly in this movie, and I love him doing a Leonard Nimoy impression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, going back to just, the Spock, the little nods to Spock, like the look on Chekhov's face when he's asked to take over the science station is a great little little moment, because it hasn't set in that Spock's not with them, or it's, just that responsibility kind of hitting him in the face. Just a really nice way that Walter Koenig plays it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can definitely tell like the pain is still fresh. And the way that Kirk walks around the bridge, monologuing, and kind of basically ends that trip around the bridge at Spock's chair.
There's that line that he says during that, where he's talking about how like all these people have left the Enterprise, all these crew members to go do other things, and he calls the Enterprise. It's like he says that the Enterprise is like a house and all the family's gone.
Yeah.
And I really like that, because to me that's entirely what this movie's about. And one of the reasons that I love it so much, and there's going to be lots of instances of that sort of theme coming back a lot about family. And I'm excited to get into it. But yeah, that's the first line in the movie where I am like, yeah, like this, I like this movie a lot.
Right on.
Yeah.
So is there a time jump here? Because at the end of Wrath of Khan, we've got David, Savick, and Carol Marcus are on the Enterprise, and Carol asks Kirk how he feels, and that's when he says, young.
Right.
And that's like the end of Wrath of Khan. So are they on board the Enterprise at the opening of this movie, and then do they disembark once they reach space dock, and then David and Savick transfer to the Grissom and then go off?
No, because Kirk mentions in his opening monologue that they're not there, that they're exploring the planet.
Okay, I totally missed that then. Okay.
Yeah.
So then they did do some kind of transfer. So then we just don't know where Carol Marcus is.
Right.
Okay.
There's just been there has been some time, and I think there's been at least, I would say, at least a week since the end of Wrath of Khan, and then I think there's some more time between their arrival at the base and when we see when we go and we visit what ship is that they're on?
The Grissom.
Yeah, that they're when we see the Grissom, because they point out the star date.
Yeah.
And so that made me think, oh, okay, so there's been a time jump then.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why would you need to show us that?
And I wondered that, but then they didn't show us the time date before then, unless Kirk. I don't think, does he say it in the monologue? I don't know if he says, but
I can't remember.
Yeah. So okay, so that was just for me in the moment was a little confusing because I didn't understand when David and Savick had time to leave the Enterprise and go to the Grissom and then go to Genesis. But makes sense, yeah, if they were transferred at some point between on the return journey, I guess.
Yeah, they had to make those shoddy repair jobs.
Yeah.
Looked like somebody was awful at welding. You looked at the outside of the ship.
Yeah.
You know what? There's something else. Like, I think, yeah. I noticed a lot of wood paneling in the space port or whatever they were at.
Okay.
And I'm just going to assume that, like everything, wood paneling came back into style. Why in space? I don't know.
Right.
But hey, I'm just glad to see it came back.
Do you mean once they're on the space dock and moving?
Yeah.
Okay.
They tend to hold on to the fashion of the time.
Yeah.
I think throughout the movie, it's not like it doesn't seem like anyone tries to hide the fact that this is being made in the 80s, but they're still holding on to the 70s.
Yeah.
You'll notice that with their wardrobe.
Oh.
Well, I mean, that's
Kirk's jumpsuit.
Yeah.
his tracksuit.
My favorites is battle bloused at the end. That pink fluffy shirt thing.
I don't want to be a pirate.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
One thing that I noticed not too long ago, really for the first time, where I actually I don't know, I think I just took it for granted, and then I was watching something Star Trek. I think it was, I might have been watching all of these during the whole like 50th anniversary thing. I was like rewatching all of these original series movies.
Okay.
And something that stuck out to me that time I was watching them all and I'd never noticed before, and now I can't stop noticing it, is that all the men's sideburns are shaved into points.
Yeah. That's the fashion of the time.
Such a weird detail. Well, no, I mean, it's all Star Trek.
Right.
All Star Trek.
I know, yeah.
Yeah. It's such a weird detail. Just this little random thing where they're like, yeah, let's just do this and we won't talk about it. We'll people can just assume it's the future.
Yeah, I've always liked that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never noticed that.
Yeah, they all have pointy sideburns.
Yeah.
That kind of come forward, like it's not even really like natural where hair grows necessarily. Like
maybe Leonard Nimoy was like, if I have to put on these prosthetic pointy ears, Everybody else needs to at least have pointy sideburns. It's only fair.
Do we want to talk about Spock's daddy?
I'm ready for that. If that's unless someone else has notes that I guess take place before that, but
I mean, my only other note is that the captain of the Grissom is the most cowardly captain in like Star Trek history.
yeah,
He's a terrible captain.
he's very much like, well, I don't want to get in trouble for this, so
yeah.
He's
let's
the opposite of Kirk.
yeah, proceed with caution.
He's like one of those managers who never make any decisions. They just ask everybody else.
He's the Michael
for
Scott.
what they think. Yeah,
Yes,
right.
okay.
Oh, what do you think?
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that.
Who do you guys think I should fire?
Yeah. Terrible.
That's awesome. It brings up something that I was listening to. So there's 2 audio commentaries on the iTunes for this movie. One is Leonard Nimoy and Harve Bennett, and then the other is Ronald D. Moore and Michael Taylor, I think. Both. So the one I listened to today was the Ronald D. Moore and Michael Taylor, and they had nothing to do with this movie, but then they play a big part of Next Generation and later Star Trek.
Absolutely.
And of course, Ronald D. Moore created Battlestar Galactica, or the reboot. But anyways, they had a great point about Kirk and his captain style and like who he is as a character. And I've heard it before, but hearing them say it again just reminded me how great of a idea this was, that Shatner plays Kirk the way a little boy would with the qualities that a little boy would see in a captain.
In a leader, just in general.
He's the hero, and especially with the original series Kirk, he's always the hero. He's always getting the girl. He's always has a moral center, Yeah, it just reminded me with the comparison to the other captain of the Grissom. So
yeah.
So yeah, you guys want to talk about some Sarek?
Yeah.
Spock.
I have been and always shall be your friend. Live long and prosper.
No. Forgive me. It is not here. I had assumed he mind-melded with you. It is the Vulcan way, when the body's end is near. We were separated. He couldn't touch me. I see. And everything that he was, everything he knew, is lost.
It's interesting how, I mean, they set up the mind meld thing at the end, but from what I understand, when they were doing Wrath of Khan, they just did it as an out.
Yes.
And that's it. And they didn't know how that was going to play into what the next one was going to be. They just wanted to give themselves a path,
right.
I guess. And so I will say that I like this conversation between Sarek and Kirk because you understand them from both perspectives. Like the idea of, why did you send my son's body away? Like he could be resurrected, and Kirk just being like, that's ridiculous. You can't do that. That's not a thing. And two, it wouldn't have worked anyway because he would have had to mind meld with me, and he couldn't because there was the glass between us. Like all that stuff was just really, I liked that whole conversation about how it sort of like led them down the path of no hope. And I think there's something really tragic about that conversation. I mean, obviously we know watching it that Bones has Spock in his head, but neither of them know that because it didn't happen when any of them were around. So I was just a big fan of that conversation and how they sort of explained away, like how they sort of set up the retcon that they're doing.
Yeah.
But also are telling you like, yes, it's a retcon, but there's also like all these other problems with it. And the only solution is the Bones thing, which it's a very clean way of setting up a retcon, I think.
Yeah.
Luckily, Kirk had a tape of Wrath of Khan to rewind and look over. And figure it out.
It's convenient that they had all those angles and that nice editing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Reminded me of Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Who knew that Wrath of Khan was a found footage movie?
Right.
Yeah.
The Kirk Sarek scene it's one of, like, for me, it's the standout scene in the movie. On one hand, you have Sarek, and played beautifully by Mark Leonard. He's a father who has lost his son, but he can't really convey that, properly without emotion, because of his Vulcan being. He doesn't understand why his body was left behind, like you said, and he's angry. So he's angry and he's grieving, but again, he can't, display that emotion. And I think Mark Leonard plays it just wonderfully, where you can tell he's struggling with that. So that on one hand, you've got him. On the other, you've got Kirk, who's lost his best friend, and yet he keeps seeing Spock in Bones and in Sarek. When Sarek enters the room, they think it's, you can tell, that everyone in that room thought it was Spock. He's being forced to relive Spock's last moments just by seeing Sarek, and now when Sarek's in his head, they have that conversation of Spock and Kirk's. So he's also then being kind of brought to, or taken to task for, not honoring Spock's body the Vulcan way. So he's got that guilt on top, for not preserving Spock's soul, essentially. So there's so much going on in this scene, and it's essentially just two actors in front of a fireplace dealing with their loss. And yeah, that's why it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, probably my favorite scene in the movie. And the direction by Leonard Nimoy here is just fantastic.
There was something I realized while watching the scene that I don't want to say stole, but I'll say inspired J.K. Rowling. Because essentially Spock did what Voldemort did to Harry Potter and put a piece of his essence or soul into McCoy like he did to Harry.
Yeah.
So there's a little dark magic going on here with Spock. Because he even kind of possesses McCoy, like we saw earlier, where like a piece of his personality takes control or something.
Sure.
Right.
So it just made me think of Harry Potter.
The Bones who lived.
Yeah.
Yep, the Bones who lived. I was just like, holy crap, this is Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I love that scene because you're right. He is trying to not be emotional, and he's trying to hide behind logic. So all of his questions, while they're coming from an emotional place, they're all logic questions.
Right.
And he asked you not to do that. Why would you do that? And why wouldn't, he mind melded with you, didn't he? No. Oh, well, so everything he's asking is coming from a sense of desperation, but it's also all logic questions. So yeah, it's a really good scene. It's really good.
Yeah, it seems like he was battling with that for a while, because towards the end he sort of admits to the head priestess lady that when it comes to his son, logic isn't exactly strong with that topic.
Which is odd for Sarek, because we've seen Sarek once before in, I think it was Tower of Babel or Journey to Babel. Journey to Babel. It's the one original series episode that he was in. I think he did some voice work in the animated series, but Sarek was always very disconnected from Spock, and didn't let emotions really get the better of him. So it's interesting getting to see him face that loss. So,
All right, is that it for Act 1 or anything else?
I guess the one other thing that I wanted to just bring up was just like a little note, which is, I love the bit where they're all being commended for the whole everything that went down with Khan.
Yeah.
And there's a new ship, and Scotty isn't into it, and requests that he be on the the refurbishment of the Enterprise, because he's assuming that they're going to refurbish the Enterprise again. They've done it once before, so why not again? And he gets the news that no, actually, we're gonna let it go. It's been 20 years, and we're gonna let it go. And what I love about that, I love that they use the Enterprise in this movie as a metaphor for Spock, and how, it's one thing, they're all having trouble with letting Spock go. And now, Scotty's like, well, at least I have the Enterprise. Like, the Enterprise is their crew. It's like it's their house. It's their home. And when they're like, yeah, we're just going to let the Enterprise die, and you're all going to be reassigned to other ships and stuff, or just get a new ship together or whatever. And Scotty is just not about that at all. And I really like that thing, because these are guys, and it leads to my other, to one of my favorite, my absolute favorite my favorite scene in all of Star Trek, which is in this movie. And it's just like the idea of like, okay, we're trying to get over the loss of our friend, we're trying to grieve, we're trying to deal with this thing, but now you're telling us that our home is going to be decommissioned. And okay, so now we're not going to let that happen. And in turn, because we're not going to let them, we're not going to let the Enterprise die, we're also not going to let Spock die. Like, I like that sort of that metaphor, that sort of doubling that's going on between the Enterprise, which is just, it's not a human being. It's this sort of logical, machine.
Yeah.
It's a, and then you have Spock, and I like that they're all sort of putting Spock on the Enterprise. They're like putting their emotions of Spock onto the Enterprise. And so the Enterprise comes first. And then when they have Spock again, well, we find out what happens to the Enterprise. So they end up losing one of them. I really like all of that. I think that's really strong. And it starts in that scene with Scotty in Act 1.
Well, it's interesting. Oh, go ahead, Patrick.
I was just going to say, that's the thing I kind of liked about the beginning of this movie, is that it's a little different. It's very emotional rather than action-packed or, Star Trek-y like that. So I never thought about the ship sort of being an extension of Spock, and like them all sort of coalescing into one big pain that they're all feeling now. But that's pretty interesting idea.
And it's also, you could see the ship as a metaphor for the crew themselves, because that conversation that I guess probably comes later, the conversation with Uhura. Yeah. I mean, they're all being, treated like relics, and they're old, and they're, there's no place for them in this new young Federation or Starfleet. So
because I mean, to a certain extent, it's like our friend died. Like, one of us died. Yeah. Like, one of us actually died. Like, that's never happened before. And we had Wrath of Khan, which was all about life and death and all of that stuff, and like growing old and everything, mortality. And then we have here, and everyone is not just dealing with the death of their friend, but they are dealing with mortality, because as much as, you know, having another adventure made them all feel alive again and useful and youthful, it also reminded them that they're all going to die soon. Like, no matter what they do, they're going to die soon. That's just a way of life. And then when they lose their friend, that's what made them remember, like, oh, right, we're all mortal. Like, if the logical guy is the first one to go, like, we're you know, we're all emotional wrecks. Like, we're not going to be around much longer. And now they're telling us that the ship is going to be decommissioned, and it's just like, no, we need to fight this. And I like that, because not only are they going to fight to keep their ship, but they're going to fight to keep their friend. And that's what this whole movie is about. And and the fact that those two things are a metaphor for themselves as well as each other, like, oh man, it's beautiful. I love it.
Let's not forget Bones is going to go to the funny farm.
Yeah.
So that's another thing.
Yeah. It's interesting because the movie, without Spock in it very much, you know, he's in every scene of this movie. You know, everyone that he's the MacGuffin. He's what everyone's going after. Well, not the Klingons, but I mean, everything that Kirk wants in this movie is just to go find Spock, and you know, his presence can be felt in almost every scene of this movie. And I don't know, it's interesting that you don't really get him until the end, but it still feels like, I mean, when the entire movie, his name's in the title, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's that thing where I don't know if you guys watched Buffy, but there's this bit where you know, Giles, the Watcher, on that show, is in that show every single episode for a really long time, and then in season 6 he goes away, like early on in the show, and the show carries on without him, and you don't really miss him. And then he comes back at the end of season 6, and he shows up in like one of like the most like kind of badass moments ever. And that's what it feels like when Spock comes back in this movie. It, like, you don't miss that you don't know that you're not really sort of, I mean, you intellectually understand that he's not around, but you don't really miss him until he's back. And then you're like, oh, right. Spock, you know?
Yeah.
And it feels so good for him to be back, and you get the sense of relief that all the other characters are getting too.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that does it for me as far as Act 1, unless you guys got some.
I think we took care of that one.
Okay.
Now Act 2. Yeah, this I just put road trip.
Nice.
Boys only.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that.
Yeah, but at least she gets to throw the young guy into the closet.
Right.
I that Uhura moment is I mean, Uhura's like, she's one of those characters that always gets the short shift in these movies, and she's lucky to get like one really great moment in each movie, and this is definitely my favorite Uhura moment, is the moment with that young idiot that she gets to put in the closet.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's so great, and just like, God, it's easy for you to say, you're old. Like, it's just, oh man, shove him in a closet. My God. Yeah.
She's a stone cold badass in that, in that little moment.
Yeah.
No,
I love that.
The guy's just like, you're so old. This is perfect for you, but I'm young and need adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, oh, you like adventure, huh? Feel your heart racing as I point this phaser at you. That was just the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it when old people get the drop on the young guys.
Absolutely. That whole sequence with them stealing the Enterprise is my favorite moment of all Star Trek.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Because to me, this is the reason I love this movie so much. And I'm just going to say, this is my favorite Star Trek movie of the original series. The original crew. Wrath of Khan's a close second, but the reason that I prefer Star Trek 3 to Star Trek 2 is because it's a crew movie, and Star Trek 2 is just about Kirk. Everything kind of revolves around Kirk, and Star Trek 3 is about the crew. And I love that. And I think that this is the movie where they stop being coworkers and they start being a family.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the moment where that happens, where they all become equals here. And Kirk is still always going to be the patriarch, because that's just, he's always going to be at the head of the table. But I think they get to a point where in this, they're all like, yeah, no, we're all going to throw our careers away to save one of our family members, because, you know, he's their family. And, you know, that's what you do with family. And that's what this movie represents to me, is that, you know, Wrath of Khan was the last time that they were all coworkers, and the loss of Spock brought them all together as a family. And that's what this moment to me represents, is that sort of transcendence beyond just being coworkers. And now they're all, and like, you know, friends, but coworkers at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, they go get drinks after work and they laugh and whatever, but they're not family yet. They're still only together because they're coworkers. Like in Wrath of Khan, you know, Chekhov isn't even part of the crew. He's on another ship.
Yeah.
He's doing another thing entirely.
Yep.
And so I think that's what I love so much about this movie, is because it represents to me the evolution of these characters, from going to just being coworkers to becoming a family, and, you know, saving one of their own.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense, because this is like the like I wrote, like this is the gang coming together.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it is more of a family now than just, you know, side pieces to Kirk's story.
Yeah.
So, and in this part where they're like planning things out and, you know, enacting the plan, you get to see a little bit of everybody's expertise or something. Like Sulu, when I love that part when the guard called him Tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back after they get Bones out of there. And he's got the guy pinned up against the wall, and his jacket's still perfectly still on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Like, not many people can take down a big guy while still putting their coat on their shoulders like that. So I just can only imagine what happened that we couldn't see. And it had to be awesome. I let my imagination take control on that one.
Right on.
Oh, that and speaking of McCoy, that scene of McCoy in the bar trying to get like trying to Millennium Falcon his way out of that bar.
Definitely, that's their cantina scene.
Oh God, it is definitely there's certainly lines to be drawn to Star Wars there, but I just love that scene to pieces. I just think it's so great.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the Bones, you know, going, because it doesn't appear that Kirk has anything to do with this meeting. You know, it's nice because Bones actually has some agency, and he goes to the bar by himself with, like I said, with no knowledge, I don't think, of Kirk's meeting with the Admiral to go seek out Spock. So Bones is looking, you know, to hire transport to take him to Mos Eisley or wherever he's going. You know, obviously he's going about it the wrong way, but he's determined to do it by himself because he knows something's not right, and he knows that he needs to get to Genesis. So it's nice that Bones is making those decisions by himself. It's not Kirk saying, we're all going on this journey together, which he doesn't do, which is, you know, again, nice that the crew bands together for Kirk and for their friend, but it's especially nice to have Bones, having a scene all to himself, essentially, which we haven't ever really gotten, where he is in charge of his own, I guess, story. So.
Mm-hmm.
See, I just assume he wanted Spock's voice to shut up in his head.
Well, I mean, with
those two don't get along.
Yeah,
usually.
with as combative as those two have always been, that would drive Bones nuts.
I'm just imagining Carl Urban's Bones having Spock in his head, and I want to see that. I just want to see that. Not to say that I want to see Zachary Quinto die in a Star Trek movie, but I do want to see him in Carl Urban's head. I absolutely do. Maybe they can swap bodies or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Pull a Freaky Friday. Have a transporter malfunction.
Yeah, there we go.
So for some reason, I thought I remembered the stealing of the Enterprise and all the escape scene. I thought it went down a bit more like Captain Jack Sparrow in the first Pirates movie.
Where they prep it and then steal it or something.
Yeah, for some reason I was thinking that they start by stealing the Enterprise just to get out of space dock, and actually just so that the Excelsior will have time to be taken out of space dock and get prepped and get ready, and that they were going to then transfer over to the Excelsior and take it the entire movie, completely forgetting that the original Enterprise, is the ship that they're in at the end of the movie when it blows up. Like, for some reason, I was thinking that was their plan, was to, steal the Excelsior because it's a faster ship and all that. But I do like this whole escape scene, and like Scott said, it's nice to see that crew banding together, and you get to see a little more of their individual talents and stuff. So
yeah, I love Scotty and his reaction to the ship that he was on. Like, he even yells at the elevator.
Yeah, up your shaft.
Talking. He's like, up your shaft. And I just knew he was up to something,
Yeah.
It was just great. I think I'm just a sucker for old dudes getting back at people.
Right.
I love the movie Grumpy Old Men.
So I think we need to talk about we need to talk about the elephant in the room, the Saavik the Saavik shaped elephant in the room.
Okay.
Because so I like the character of Saavik in theory, but in execution in both films. Now, granted, maybe it's the Christopher Lloyd effect, but I can't deal with Kirstie Alley in Wrath of Khan because I just see Kirstie Alley, and it's really distracting to me. Maybe at the time that wouldn't be the case. I think that was prior to Cheers, if I'm not mistaken, and that's the reason why she's not in this, is because of Cheers.
They credit her in Wrath of Khan as introducing Kirstie Alley. So.
Right. So maybe at the time that wouldn't, Kirstie Alley as Saavik wouldn't have bothered me at all. But now, I wasn't alive when Wrath of Khan came out. So yeah. I've always known Kirstie Alley as that lady from Look Who's Talking.
Yep.
So I was really distracted by her in Wrath of Khan, and then this woman would probably be fine. This actress, Robin
Curtis.
I forget. Okay. Yeah. She would be fine, but they give her nothing to do, which sucks because, the Wrath of Khan, Nicholas Meyer, created this character of Saavik and had like really cool ideas that he wanted to do with Saavik.
Yeah.
And as soon as he doesn't direct the third one, they immediately run her into the ground, to the point where he had to take his plans that he had for Saavik and create a new character played by Kim Cattrall in Star Trek VI. So I think it's a problem. I think it's a problem because I think there's nothing wrong with this actress at all. I just don't think they allow her to be the same character that she was in Wrath of Khan, and then they end up just sort of making her. I wouldn't even call her a Spock love interest, because what she does is logical. So
to get him through the
right
what he's going through. Okay,
exactly. So it's not even a love interest. It's it's something
she's a babysitter.
Yeah, basically.
Or a caregiver.
Yeah, so it's weird how they just sort of they do what they do with her here, and then in the fourth one they're just like, bye.
We're going on an adventure.
Yeah, you stay here.
Have
See
fun
ya.
storming the castle.
Yeah.
Well, did you hear what they I guess had filmed or alluded to with her character in the fourth? Yeah. I guess they were either going to show or imply that she was pregnant with Spock's child when they left her in the next movie. So,
no protection on Genesis, as it turns out.
Yeah.
But it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem. And you know what? She's not great in this movie as a character, and David does not help matters. Because he's pretty universally bad.
Right.
And in this and Wrath of Khan, he's pretty universally bad.
I'd like to see her, and she may. I'd like to see her in a next gen episode playing another character. And they do that with so many actors and other people that have these connections to Star Trek. Like, I'd love to see her play a character in a TV, version of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Saavik. I wasn't like you said. I wasn't a huge fan of Kirstie Alley's Saavik either. So
yeah, it's just distracting. It's not Kirstie Alley's fault. It's distracting. I think what they did with her was interesting. I wish they would have kept the Romulan thing.
Yeah,
because that made her really interesting, and they cut every reference to it out of the movie for some reason. But only, I think, to use it again with the Kim Cattrall character, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's weird. Yeah, the Saavik thing is weird and unfortunate. Just a side effect of, having a single continuity, but letting all kinds of people work on it. And so, a character that one creative is really interested in, another one isn't, and they're just like, let's just sweep that under the rug, and then the first person comes back and is like, oh man. So it's a bummer.
Hey, I created this character over here. Do you guys know what happened to her?
Right.
Yeah, we kind of left her on Vulcan. And Patrick, what do you got?
It kind of harkens back to the Christopher Lloyd again, the commander. It just seems like a weird, I'm surprised anybody follows this guy.
Oh, okay.
Just because of his short fuse. I'm surprised there's as many crew members left as there are.
I like to imagine the way that he works in my head is that although the opening scene with him in Act 1 kind of doesn't play into this because that woman allows herself to be blown up because she respects this guy so much. Yeah. But I would like the idea of, they're this terrorist cell, but what if they were just, the Klingon equivalent of internet trolls, they're just total losers, and they're like Invader Zim, but they're like Klingons, and they're terrible, and all the other Klingons hate them. They're worst. And so they're just trying to prove themselves. If that was the case, I would love these Klingons so much. Because when you look at the three of them together, they look like the Three Stooges. There's he's the Mo, and then there's the bald one and the one with the goofy hair. It's so funny. I don't know.
And one of those malts is John Larroquette.
Oh, right.
totally
Yeah.
unrecognizable under the makeup, and yeah.
Right. As opposed to Christopher Lloyd, who just looks like
Sure.
Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just it was that scene where he shoots the vessel, and he was supposed to just do like a take out the engines kind of shot.
I love
And he
that.
accidentally blows the whole thing open.
I actually was like, "Holy shit!" when the Grissom exploded, because I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah. And he's like, "Lucky shot."
Yeah,
And he just shoots him.
Generally, the thing that's crazy about him is like he's a horrific. I was going to call him a human being, but that's not true. He's a horrific character. Like he is absolutely he's a psychopath. Because this guy does the most evil stuff in this movie, and just doesn't care, and just does it with absolutely no bearing. Like this is not like the Vulture in the new Spider-Man movie where you watch it and you're like, I get this guy.
Right.
We don't get this guy. He's just evil. I mean, he's just an evil psychopath. And there's something I don't know. There's something that I like about that. But then I also, you kind of you want to understand them, but he's also a terrorist. So whatever. I guess.
I think it's just weird because you don't know really his motive other than for pride of his people and race or whatever.
Well, and he thinks that the Federation is a gang of thugs, I think is how he puts it. So he feels
he's actually a lot like the villain in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Sure. Yeah.
What's his name?
Lee Pace. Ronan. Ronan the Accuser.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's just like Ronan the Accuser.
Yeah, because
kind of the same thing.
Thanos is kind of annoyed by him. Like, what trouble is this guy causing?
Right. Yeah.
This planet is not what you intended or hoped for, is it?
Not exactly.
Why?
I used protomatter in the Genesis Matrix.
Protomatter. An unstable substance which every ethical scientist in the galaxy has denounced as dangerously unpredictable.
But it was the only way to solve certain problems.
So, like your father, you changed the rules.
If I hadn't, it might have been years or never.
How many have paid the price for your impatience? How many have died? How much damage have you done? And what is yet to come?
I want to talk about David.
Why?
Well, okay. I want to talk about the ticking clock in this movie, which is the proto-matter that he used to create Genesis. So, one, it's hard to believe that Dr. Carol Marcus would go along with, hey, let's take this shortcut. It may be unstable, but we can test it or whatever. So this essentially causes Genesis to break down rapidly, but it reminds me of using frog DNA to fill in the gene sequence gaps in Jurassic Park. Mm-hmm. Nice little reminder that, life may find a way, but it's going to get away from you and it's going to turn to shit really fast. So
chaos theory.
Yeah. So that just felt like a very similar plot element. And I'm always a fan of the organic time clock that presents with the rapid aging of the planet and the Spock and Genesis. They have a time limit. Krug wants Genesis as a weapon. He's a roadblock in Kirk's way. Kirk's racing to get there.
I don't think my only argument with that is that I don't think David doing that, or David and Carol, I guess, doing that was necessary. Like, why couldn't they have just been wrong?
Yeah, I guess.
Why could it's the first time they're doing it. It's not like they've done this a bunch of times. Why couldn't they have just started it and being like, oh wow, we must have screwed up because this is happening really fast.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's enough. Like that, just having that, it doesn't need to be on purpose. I don't think. But oh well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then
So,
we never really hear about Genesis again, and it's like, well, it would have worked if he hadn't done that stupid thing.
Sure,
so like,
yeah.
we could be like terraforming stuff and whatever, but if it just hadn't worked,
Yeah.
well then,
Well, that's
then you can't just sweep it under the rug and it'd be fine.
Yeah, that's the main problem in Undiscovered Country is that the Klingons need a home. They need a planet.
Uh-huh.
So, hey, there's this method of creating planets. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about. Let's tinker with that a little bit.
Is it that it doesn't work, or it just works too slowly?
Well, it's that he used this proto matter, which I think it's
Okay, I thought it just worked too slow, like naturally, slowly over millennia, like eons.
Yeah, I think he used proto matter to speed up the process so that they could get results faster.
That's what I assume based on Spock's movement and age, but
yeah, he wanted instant results.
Yeah, I need an explanation as to why it stops aging Spock when he gets off the planet. If he was already exposed to the proto matter or whatever. I didn't quite get that. I didn't know why leaving the planet would fix Spock.
I think the planet itself just gives off maybe an aura of this life-altering, life-creating, because the microbes that they say are on the casket, just because they're on the planet, they're not necessarily making a physical connection, but just because
they're not from the planet.
Yeah, but
then the argument should be then that Saavik and David should be aging too.
Yeah.
That's where I was getting lost. I was like, okay, somebody should be doing something.
But maybe because it's an
imagine if Kirk and the others had come onto the planet and we hadn't seen David and Saavik for a while, and they're both like elderly taking care of Spock, who's now like a teenager, and it's just like, and that's how they get rid of both of those characters. They just die of old age on the planet, and then you really understand the ticking clock that way.
Man,
I would like it if David looked like Shatner.
Yeah.
Like it's just Shatner playing David.
Man, yeah, that would be good. I figure it's just a radiation that's given off by the planet, and it only affects everything, but because when Kirk and everyone else steps foot on the Genesis, they're not affected as rapidly because they're not from there.
Well, the microbes aren't from there though.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Well, they were there.
They're from.
Blast hit.
They have a thing around. They have like a science thing around them, and it protects them from the stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because the bomb goes off after Spock hits the planet, right?
No. They launch Spock onto the formed planet.
Okay, so it's still forming while they're...
Yeah, it's like it's in its cool down phase, kind of. I mean, there were plants and vegetation and that kind of life.
So we can just say anything that lands there really early on gets affected.
Yeah.
So there's like a grace period. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
And then leaving fixes everything.
Yeah, because I'll chalk that up to like the radiation. Spock is no longer affected by the radiation that the planet gives off, so his aging stops.
Okay.
In my head canon, that's how it works.
Okay. Yeah. No, it just confused me as to why that was the fix.
Sure.
Didn't mean to derail.
No.
I don't know. This whole Genesis thing. I think what I like about it is that, this is not an action-packed movie like Wrath of Khan is. And even Wrath of Khan, it's not. It's action-packed for Star Trek, but it's hardly action-packed.
It's dramatic and it's full of tension.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not that kind of movie. And what I like about this movie, as just a Star Trek movie, is that it feels like an original series episode.
Totally.
I'm really into that. It's the same reason why I as much as the motion picture needed to be like an hour shorter than it is. I still really like the plot of the motion picture. Like, I think it's a really excellent, like, Twilight Zone-y kind of episode
Sure.
of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way about this. This just feels like the most. This is the most like the original series that these movies ever feel, in my opinion. Even Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, you might be right. Yeah.
Wrath of Khan is great, but it feels like, you know, oh, this might be the last time we're ever going to be with these guys. So let's make the ultimate Star Trek movie. And it's like the ultimate Star Trek story. And it does not, it feels like an ending and not so much like like a Star Trek adventure. This just feels like an episode of Star Trek on a larger scale.
Yeah,
really
that was the nice thing about Star Trek Beyond, is that the most recent of the new Trek, like, it feels like an episode. And
yes, absolutely. And I think that one of the reasons that people, like a lot of Star Trek fans, were really dismissive of Star Trek Beyond and of this one, of this movie, is I think because they always want Wrath of Khan. They don't want Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
Because Into Darkness taught us that they don't want Wrath of Khan again, but they want the feeling that Wrath of Khan gives them every single time.
Yeah.
And you just can't, it's not possible. You can't do that every single time. Because that's why we've gotten into this loop of constantly blowing up the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. I think I just like Khan because it was almost an equal to Kirk.
Yeah.
As far as strategy and like just thinking through things.
Oh, absolutely. I love Khan as a villain.
Yeah.
But the whole thing with Star Trek is like Star Trek doesn't always need a villain. Like sometimes the villain is the problem that they're trying to solve. And you know, that's why I like this because yes, you know, Krug or Kruge or whatever is he's an antagonist, I guess, but he's not like the villain, you know, like he's not the reason why the problems are happening. The problem is like that the Genesis planet is dying and they need to get Spock off of it before they lose him again. You know, that's where
he's just a roadblock, you know, he's just in their way.
Right.
So that's a David.
Well, should we talk about that? Because
I mean, yeah, did we decide that's the end of Act 2, right?
End of Act 2.
Right.
Okay, then yeah.
Yeah. That is one of the worst death scenes I've ever seen. It's an off-screen, on-screen stabbing. Like it's really bad, and it's so not the Klingon way because like one he says like, yeah, kill one of them, I don't care which. A Klingon's gonna choose David every single time.
Yeah.
Every single time a Klingon is going to choose David. If they're not going to kill a kid, they're not going to kill a woman, they're going to kill David.
Right.
That's the one they're going to choose. And the fact that he chooses Saavik and then David gets to be the hero is just the most just like lame, manipulative moment. And it's just like, it's like I wouldn't be surprised if in the script he just stabs David in the back and the actor who played David was like, can he like go for Saavik and I save him and be like a big hero and die a hero? And Leonard Nimoy was like, yeah, whatever's going to get you off my set, man. Like, I don't know. It's really bad though. It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good. Definitely the worst part of this movie by a mile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got second place ready for the next day.
Okay. Yeah, I don't even have any notes about the David death, but
mine was, is he dead? Because I couldn't.
I
wasn't sure. It was just like you said, it was off screen, and then he doesn't get it. Like he's not back in the shot, so I'm like, I guess he's dead. I don't know. It's just awful.
I don't know if he got stabbed by that like gigantic, super thick serrated knife. I think he's probably dead.
Yeah, I don't think Genesis had enough time to clone him and bring him back.
Yeah,
right.
All right, so I guess that ends Act 2. Moving on to the third / epilogue.
Yeah.
So we get to see a very heartfelt reaction from Captain Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I say that sarcastically.
Well, I mean, he does a good job based on the fact that like the death is terrible. I think the reason that it plays false is because the death was so terrible. And I think we as an audience are watching this and be like, really? That's it? Seriously? And then he starts acting like that and you're like, that doesn't seem genuine. But I think it's really just us. It's just like,
Yeah.
well, bad death.
I'm picturing his reaction with Khan.
Right.
He's like, Khan. And he's like, you bastards, you damn dirty Klingons.
Yeah. Also, yeah, this is the movie that turns Kirk into a racist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which is so weird, like considering that like the Klingons didn't kill your son.
My baby boy.
A terrorist cell killed your son.
Yeah.
It's like it's like the people who are like, yeah, my son was in the army and he got killed by a terrorist, so I hate all brown people.
Right.
Well, not all brown people are terrorists, guy. Like,
yeah,
not all Klingons are terrorists. Like, just these guys were. And you got to blow them all up, so you should feel, and then kick another one in the face, so you should feel pretty good. I don't know.
He's just older, set in his ways.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I think the Kirk reaction to the death, it feels a little strange to me. Like, I like the way, he stumbles back into the chair, he falls down basically, and I like all that, but him exclaiming you Klingon bastard, like I think he says it 3 times, and each time it sounds more and more forced. Like the first time it sounds, legitimate, but I don't. Had he killed, Bones or someone that we've seen him connect with for 20 years, it might feel more genuine with a character that he's known for 3 or 4 weeks, maybe. Like,
true,
right?
It just feels like it's a very forced reaction to yell and sob this thing 3 times, and it just, I don't know. That's what doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with the David death is we don't see David and Kirk together in this movie.
Sure.
Ever. It's like it's a little like when you realize, that moment you realize that Kirk and Khan are never in the same room together in Wrath of Khan. That's kind of the same situation here. Which is a little weird, but yeah. He gets his revenge though, and
does he.
Look, the destruction of the Enterprise has become an overused trope at this point.
Yeah.
But it works like gangbusters in this movie, I think. I think it's stellar. I love this moment. My only issue with it is I wish there were more Klingons being killed.
It really works because the self-destruct sequence, or I guess auto-destruct sequence, is verbatim what they used in Balance of Terror, or maybe it's Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, like one of the original series episodes where they're bluffing, that they're going to destroy the Enterprise, and they use this exact sequence. It's a nice callback. They then use this kind of plot device in Next Generation as well, but it's a very well done. You feel the tension, especially it helps to have a ticking clock, and you don't know, is he bluffing? Are they figuring out some way to basically, is it Kirk just cheating death again?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean, it gets super overused after this, but I love how it's used here.
Totally.
I mean, I need some help here because I'm not as familiar with Star Trek. So now when I think of boarding, I don't think of having the other guy wait to energize things and set them up for boarding. Like, is that the only way they can get onto the ship, is through that teleportation?
Yeah, the transporter.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can take a shuttle into the into the shuttle bay
Yeah.
as well. But that is usually for sneaky sneaks. That's not something like this. I think the concept is like, Krug wants them to let him on. Like it's a thing where it's like, show me your submission, like submit.
Put down your defenses, beam us
right.
over. Well, and the Klingon bird of prey, that's not a big ship. That is a battle cruiser. It's not a, there aren't 1,000, people living on that ship like there are, or maybe not this Enterprise, but.
So why do they think they can take it with like 12 dudes?
Well, they're Klingons.
Okay.
Well,
because I know they're still outside with like photon torpedoes, but I don't know. It's just weird if they thought there was that many people.
It's really weird to me later when Krug has Maltz beam up like 5 or 6, of Kirk's crew onto the ship when it's just all them and Maltz. Like, why would he, Klingon or not, why would you have your like second in command trying to be in charge of like, 5 or 6 people? That seemed weird to me.
I did like the cloak of invisibility though.
Oh yeah, the cloaking device.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It looked nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The color of the ship still weirds me out, but whatever.
Oh yeah, the green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just jarring, next to the Enterprise.
Sure.
With its like space gray. You'd think you'd want to go something a little less eye-popping, but whatever. I guess that's why you got the cloak.
Yeah. I imagine I don't remember, is the bird of prey a Romulan design or Klingon? Because I know the Romulans also have like birds of prey or something like that, but I don't know. I assume that the original creature that it's designed after, because I know the original series have a big bird painted on their birds of prey. So I imagine those birds are originally like green on their planet or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm assuming it's painted green.
Gotcha. Okay.
You want to talk about some Kirk v. Krug? Yeah, is this the first fist fight or physical fight in the Star Trek movies?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. I thought
if I'm not mistaken, I might be making this up. I don't know. But for some reason, I seem to remember that this was originally supposed to be a sword fight.
Oh.
Like in the script, it's a sword fight, and then Nimoy or maybe it was Shatner. Because there was a little bit of a tension between Shatner and Nimoy because Shatner didn't think Nimoy was capable of directing this movie.
Yeah.
And so it could be a thing where, it was a sword fight and Shatner was like, I'd rather this just be like me, kicking his ass, like I do on the streets.
Yeah.
And because it'd be like a throwback to like all the times that I got into like punching matches in the old show, and maybe Nimoy was finally just like, okay, all right, Shatner, just go ahead, Bill, do whatever you want. Because it does feel kind of like half-assed choreographed.
I mean, we get a lot of those classic Kirk, fight moves, the double-fisted like chop hit.
Yep. The only part of it that I like is the face kicks.
Okay.
That's the only part of it that I like, because that is brutal.
Yeah.
that is a dark move. There's nothing heroic about kicking someone in the face off a cliff. That's messed up.
Yeah.
It escalated quickly because he was saving him, and then straight to kicking him in the face.
That Klingon bastard tried to take him with him, So so I think I said in Wrath of Khan that I wanted a Kirk and Khan scrap, because even in Wrath of Khan, Kirk is taunting Khan like, you'll have to come down here. You've got to come down here and face me. And I think then I wanted that fight because they fought in the original series episode. I wanted like a new version of that. And I think this feels like what we would have gotten there. So maybe we were spared by not having,
I think
those great characters.
I what I think would have been cool is I don't disagree. I think that Wrath of Khan is really missing a face-to-face in the same room showdown. Between Kirk and Khan. But what I would have loved to see, if I was the guy writing that movie and somebody, like, I got a studio note of like, we need a fight scene. I think what I would have done was in that bit during the battle or whatever, like there's like that bit in the ship battle where they sort of distract Khan and get the better of him, in the little chess match that they're playing.
Yeah.
I forget exactly what happens.
They're in the Mutara Nebula and cruising around.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So they sort of like trick him and then get the better of him. I think it would have been a cool moment, because my biggest problem with the fight in Space Seed is that Khan he's a superhuman.
Yeah.
And Kirk is just a guy. So I think it would have been so cool to have a moment where they have a showdown and just Khan just beats the living shit out of Kirk. And then Kirk just starts laughing, and then you realize why, and because it was all a distraction.
Oh, yeah.
I think something like that would have been really cool, because the truth is, Kirk he does not have a leg to stand on.
No.
I think that's the reason why they didn't end up doing a fight, is because you can't do one, because Khan would easily win.
Right.
He can lift up Chekhov in his little suit with one hand. So I don't think Kirk would have won that fight.
No,
I really don't. He would have had to outsmart him somehow.
I forget. I think in the original series, doesn't he like kind of get the advantage by hitting him with a wrench or something? Like he's using some kind of equipment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really silly. It's really silly.
Yeah.
Not my favorite.
Right.
But then it also, like in the 60s, it would have been really difficult to present super strength.
Yeah.
It's not really an easy thing to do back then. But yeah, it's not a great fight. I wish it was still the sword fight. I think that would have been better. It would have been a little classier. It would have felt a little more Star Trek, and definitely would have felt a little more navalish.
Yeah. Pirates
right. Absolutely. But this fight is bad. It's real bad. Just, you can tell that they didn't know what they were doing, because I mean, literally Nimoy is just like, I guess we'll just turn the cameras on and you point it at you guys. I don't know. Like it's literally just shot in a wide, and they're just going to town on each other, and it's bad. It's not good. So it's really silly.
Did I miss where the communicator came off, or? Because that's what I was thinking when I was watching. I was like, well, how's he going to communicate with him if he just kicked him into the lava?
Oh, yeah, he picks it up off the ground. So,
but did he know it was taken off already?
Or
was that just dumb luck?
It was Kirk luck.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the idea is that you were supposed to assume he didn't care.
Yeah.
He just wanted to kill this guy. And then he was like, oh, good, I am Kirk. Look, there's the calm thing. Okay, good. I don't know. Yeah. It's not a good fight.
Yeah, the pink blouse doesn't help either.
Well, yeah, the red lighting, the orange, terrain, it's all very red, and I'm sure that helped that pink stand out really nicely. What's funny is that I think he's basically wearing that same outfit in the next movie, because it's not like they have a change of clothes. I mean, I guess you probably have you seen Voyage Home, Patrick?
Maybe. Is it the one with the whales?
Yes.
Then I've seen it. I just can't remember. It's been so long.
So it's been I won't say too much about that then.
Is that the time travel? And that's how they say whales? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I didn't get into Star Trek, and that right there was probably it.
Does anyone else have some Act 3 points?
Yeah. I enjoyed the Maltz, I think his name is, and Kirk's interaction when Kirk gets back on board the Bird of Prey.
Oh, sure, that's great.
where he's like, I don't deserve to live or whatever it is, and then he's like, fine, I'll kill you later. I don't know why, I just love that.
No, yeah,
It's
that's
so,
it's
like,
that is great.
offhanded. He's like, whatever, I'll kill you later.
Mm,
I was like, damn, that's dark. And then he goes back on it later, like a big old wuss.
yeah.
He's like, I lied to you. You're gonna live a long and happy life.
And that would be infuriating to a Klingon, because
That's what I assumed.
they
Yeah.
crave like a warrior's death, and death is an honored thing for Klingons, and to
Yeah, the
have
commander
your
wanted to go down with the planet.
right, yeah, to have your enemy just say, we'll just throw you in the brig or wherever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
Yeah, I just like that little dig.
Yeah, right on.
Guy's last bit of frustration out of the Klingons out of him.
I just want to see. I want to see Krug come back in like a Darth Vader costume.
I mean,
Darth Krug.
Kirk did
Yeah,
have
Darth
the high
Krug.
ground.
Yeah,
So,
he did.
Yeah, I don't know what he was
did.
thinking.
Yeah, the Klingon Emperor is going to come and dig him out of the lava. There's a lot of there's a lot of Star Wars in this, is
Yeah.
what I'm realizing. Because like even Krug even has that little pet, that little dog thing that's
Yeah.
like very like the most Star Warsy thing. Like that is so not Star Trek, whatever that thing is.
Right.
Well,
Well,
there's not a lot of
and-
puppets in Star Trek.
Yeah.
That's one of my. I wrote that down earlier after he shot the lady that was sacrificing herself,
Yeah.
and he seemed like emotional about it, like oddly, like it was his love interest or something.
I
Or
think I think they were maybe not lovers but they were friends, or maybe they were connected somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like his first thing is like, feed my space dog, please. Like he just storms out and then comes back and is like, feed the dog. It was just a weird moment that I
Yeah.
wrote down. I was like, what the hell was that all about?
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a lot of that in this, but I didn't quite understand why they were doing things.
Sure. When I first watched it, I thought, why didn't she just beam over to Krug's ship? If she already knows the secret of Genesis, she might as well be with them. If they mattered to each other.
Yeah.
Well, but she's a
But
woman.
then it's
so,
and it's just the moral principle of the Klingons, I guess, or these Klingons have, that you disobeyed me or something, so you've got to face death. So I don't know.
Right. They were definitely. She called him my love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were definitely romantically entwined.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. Klingons are weird, you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to get on to another group of weirdos, the Vulcans?
The Vulcans. Yeah.
Yeah, and their crazy voodoo rituals.
Sure.
What is your wish?
I ask for Fal Tor Pan, the refusion.
What you seek has not been done since ages past, and then only in legend. Your request is not logical.
Forgive me, Tilar. My logic is uncertain where my son is concerned.
Who is the keeper of the Katra?
I am. McCoy, Leonard H., son of David.
Here's my biggest issue. And like, look, we're human beings. We're very contradictory. It's fine. But this whole Vulcan ritual, their whole deal is logic. Why do they have a religion at all?
Yeah.
It's so
okay.
strange. It's such a strange concept. This whole resurrection thing and everything. And I guess you could make the argument that like, oh, it's just biological. Okay, well, if it's just a biological thing, then why isn't this happening in a laboratory? Why is it a big religious ceremony? Like their whole thing is science and logic. Why do they have a religion? This is weird.
Yeah, she even says this may just be a story, like the fact that this can be done.
Yeah.
Like this, the last time it was done was like long time ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And that it may,
which
have
makes
just
it
been
even
a
weirder.
myth. Yeah,
because then you're telling me that like they haven't done this in so long, but Sarek knew to do it and Spock knew to do it, and what?
Yeah, earlier it seemed like a common knowledge amongst that, like the Vulcans, like it was something you just did, but
Yeah.
why would you just do that if nobody knows if it works or not?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just a bizarre sequence of like I didn't realize all this mysticism in the Vulcan clan or whatever it is. Like I totally had no clue that that was a thing.
Well, and
other
it might
than
have been a holdover from when the Vulcans split off from their, because they were an extremely emotional and extremely temperamental and violent race, and they were killing themselves. So that's when they decided to take the emotion out of it. So maybe this is a holdover from that, and that's why they say like this hasn't been done for however long. And
but then why would Spock want to do it, and why would Sarek want to do it?
Right, or expect it to have been prepared. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It feels like a cleaner way of doing this would have been that, like, okay, so I would be fine if Spock went for it, because he's half human and he's like his whole character arc up to the end of Wrath of Khan was like learning how to balance those two sides of himself and like learning about his humanity side and all of that. So I could get on board with that. And then if Sarek had come and had just like in passing mentioned that old ritual or said something about it or hinted at it, and then Kirk did some research and discovered it and then put 2 and 2 together with Spock being in Bones, and then being like, okay, now we're gonna try this thing, and then we're gonna go find like this Vulcan religious zealot who lives out in the boonies of Vulcan, and get her to do this ceremony to try and bring Spock back, because I think Spock believed in it. All of that, if they had done it that way, I think it would have played a lot better. Because at least it just would have been a little more logically. I mean, granted, this is a cleaner way of doing it. Absolutely.
That's what I was just going to say. It's a very simple plot. Like, take Bones, find Spock, get your ass to Vulcan.
Right. It's much cleaner, but it does pose more questions than answers, I think, as a result.
I think you got to keep in mind that the Vulcan culture, and I don't know how much of it Gene Roddenberry had come up with, but I know a lot of it was just fell on Leonard Nimoy to come up with a lot of it. And I know he was using a lot of like Hebrew and Jewish elements and some other, texts or whatever to just come up with these types of rituals. I don't know. I think it just comes down to, at the end of the movie, we need a way to, transfer one to the other. And I'm guessing it just came down to, well, we'll just make it, they'll chant some stuff, and I'll touch, this guy on the face this way and touch this one this way. And,
It's all very contradictory.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was going to be like a machine of some sort. I didn't expect it to just be a couple tables and an old lady.
Well, and to borrow a line from Thor, science and magic can be the same thing. So what looks like magic or mysticism or religion could just be their version of science, in a way. I mean,
so.
There's also a question about agency and this new Spock who has no choice but to cease to exist.
Oh.
Which is really kind of messed up a little bit. I mean, granted, he aged really fast, so he's like, barely above an animal, to a certain extent. So like, I guess that's how they sort of sweep that under the rug.
Well,
but
that also makes the Ponfar sequence with Savick really kind of creepy, because it's like, how advanced is this? Because he's aged rapidly, and now he's in the body of a young adult. Is he mentally a young adult, or is he still mentally a child?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's mentally a child.
Yeah, so that's really messed up.
Because he's not Spock. He's just the body of Spock.
Right.
So he doesn't have empty. Yeah. He's just sort of empty. That's how I took it anyway. Yeah. Or at least if not empty, mentally like a baby.
That's how I see him. Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole thing is a little creepy.
Yeah.
The Ponfar thing and everything. Just pretty
That's interesting
creepy.
though about the about bringing up the agency of this blank template at the end. He doesn't have a.
Because technically he doesn't have a soul, right?
I guess that's it. Yeah, because his katra is in bones. Yeah.
It was just his body that was reanimated.
Right.
It wasn't like his immortal spirit or whatever.
Does he not have a soul, or does he just not have Spock's soul?
Because I'm betting if you'd taken the child Spock, this new clone, essentially, if you would have taken him off Genesis at that young age, then he would have been able to grow and learn and become his own being.
Right.
He wouldn't become Spock because he'd be then raised by other people. He would have been taught, other things or whatever. But then I think he would then have his own individuality.
Right.
So maybe they overwrote. They just, and that's actually one of my notes earlier was Spock just used Bones like a Dropbox and uploaded his all of his his Spockness into him. So just I guess you're taking that new template or that new clone and just wiping what's there, what little is there, and uploading the old Spock. So
right.
Too bad they didn't get him off sooner. He could have been younger.
But now that I say that, knowing what we know about the next movie and the way Spock is very childlike. He's very, he's not Spock that we, have known for 20 years. He's learning to become Spock. So maybe it doesn't overwrite that childlike, new clone version of Spock. Maybe they're both in there and they've got by the end of 4, they have to mesh together and become, one. Mm-hmm. So maybe it doesn't completely overwrite.
It's not until the end of, is it the end of 5 or the end of 6 that
it's 5, I think.
The end of 5. Yeah, because it's the row your boat thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's the end of 5 that he finally becomes Spock again.
Yeah.
So what the heck did they use as a vessel then in the original, ceremony? Like in this case, he conveniently had another body on standby, but what would they do if that wasn't the case? Because it's something they've done. Do they take a stillborn child or something? Or
I think they would just put it in another body.
Yeah.
That's creepy. That's way creepier.
So body snatchers.
Yeah. Or maybe that's where their science comes into it, and maybe they can grow bodies in their Vulcan labs that we don't see ever because we don't ever see any Vulcan society.
I love the phrase Vulcan because it sounds like a curse word.
Sure.
So when you say in their Vulcan labs.
Well, that's the great thing about Bones is he was always saying, "Are you out of your Does he say you're out of your Vulcan mind in the original series, or is that just the Carl Urban?
No, I think that's that's got to be from the original.
It might
series,
be,
right?
yeah. But other versions of that, where they're definitely using Vulcan as a placeholder. Yeah,
I love that.
I like the little eyebrow cock from Spock.
Oh that is great.
Realizing who people are, and then they have their moment like at the end of a 70s TV show where everyone's laughing.
Yeah.
Everyone just randomly bum rushes them.
Yeah.
Well, and then the flip of the phrasing from the end of Wrath of Khan, and that's really what it all comes down to is that when he sacrifices himself, a lot of people I think see this ending as so his sacrifice meant nothing. It was meaningless because you're saying what he was saying was wrong.
And
I don't see it that way. I see it as, when you are in the military and you have that mindset, that phrasing is correct. It is your job as a single soldier to save your other soldiers. But when you're a family, logic isn't part of the equation. And sometimes, everyone will sacrifice for one person. And I think that's what the journey from the end of Wrath of Khan to the end of Search for Spock is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well put.
Yeah, and I think on that we could. I don't have any other notes as far as the, I guess, end of the movie. Unless anyone else has any, we can jump into our closing kind of wrap up material.
Sure.
Okay, so let's talk most heroic.
I believe there's a hero in all of us
I just finally know what I have to do.
that keeps us honest,
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
gives us strength,
You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards.
makes us noble.
And I know in my heart that it's right.
Guest first. Come on.
Okay. I'm going to give it to Uhura.
Okay.
Because, not only, it sucks that she got left behind, but she locks a guy in a closet and allows them to steal the Enterprise and then stays behind to be reprimanded.
Yeah.
That's heroic, I think. Like, she's the only one that's going to pay, like, that it seems like she might have to pay the price for what they did immediately.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I imagine a side story where she's escaping too, because she's got to get
Right.
to Vulcan.
Yeah. I think she went to that bar and said, "Hey, my friend was in here the other day. Instead of taking me to Genesis, can you take me to Vulcan?"
Yeah, maybe, but I think it's a thing that she doesn't know necessarily that's gonna work.
Sure.
You know? For all she knows, like, that guy could get out of the closet as soon as she leaves the room and turn her in. And she'll get arrested and court-martialed or whatever. So I think it's the most heroic beat of the movie. I think everything else is sort of reactionary, but that's a genuinely heroic moment.
Yeah.
I think.
Definitely a hero moment. All right, Travis.
Okay. So I had two. I don't want to get yelled at by Scott, but I think David taking the knife for Saavik, no matter how it was written or like how it came to be,
heroic.
it is a hero moment. I do think I think the blade was meant for Saavik. I give it to him for jumping the Klingon and
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
My other one would have been just the crew in general stepping up and banding together, but Scott's right. Out of the crew, it's Uhura that goes above and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'm gonna go with towards the end of the movie with Bones.
Okay,
like agreeing
Bones
to
is a
go
good
through
choice.
it.
Definitely.
That's good.
Because he knows he's in for some crazy shenanigans. He doesn't know what's in store for him.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, because he even says, I accept the danger. That's a great choice.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Sorry, Kirk.
It wasn't his movie.
No. It was Spock and Bones, and
it's the Cruise movie.
It's the Cruise. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So how about most villainous?
You were made to be ruled.
Gods are selfish beings who fly around in little red capes and don't share their power with mankind.
In the end, you will always kneel.
I think you and I are destined to do this forever.
We got to give it to Krug, right? For just killing stuff for no reason.
Basically, yeah.
Like when he finds that thing, and like they literally don't need to go past it, but he's just gonna be like, stand back, I'm gonna kill this thing with my bare hands.
Yeah.
Just because he's a monster.
Kill this Sarlacc.
Yeah. He just squeezes it to death.
Yeah.
Yeah. The guy's a sociopath.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody really touches him, so
no.
Yeah, it's pretty much a one and done for a villain.
Yep.
He's a monster.
Overall Krug,
just constantly killing things for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
Kill one of them just to prove that I'm willing to kill one of them.
Kills this guy for failing to take prisoners with the ship blowing up.
Killing that woman at the beginning because she saw something he didn't like. Like,
the
worst.
I'll give a runner up to the tall guy at the guard station that got taken out after calling Sulu tiny.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's
no need for that.
And we can't forget the transporter room guy.
Yep.
Transporter room.
That's
guy.
more douchebag than villain, I guess.
Oh, Mr. Adventure.
Yeah, Mr. Adventure.
Okay.
Yeah. He's our honorary douche.
Right.
Yeah.
So we need to come up with the douchebag of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that might be a new category.
Yeah, okay. We'll develop that. What holds up or doesn't hold up?
Spock's aging does not hold up.
Agreed. They could have done without the face like transitioning and the like.
I thought I was watching American Werewolf in London. All of a
yeah. Because it
like,
worked.
Where's Blue Moon?
it worked totally fine every time they just cut away and it's a new Spock. Like that was perfect. They didn't need to try and do face altering makeup and prosthetics or whatever. Maybe that was a puppet. I don't know.
It was a waste of a budget, is what it was.
It really was, yeah.
Yeah, they tried. I give the 80s some slack.
But it's weird because it wasn't even on screen for more than a second or two. So I'm going to say, as far as holding up, the ship models look amazing.
Oh, yeah.
The freighter that the female Klingon is on, when they're zooming into that ship, the detail is beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, the Klingon bird of prey, that model looks incredible as well. The Enterprise looks great. It normally looks pretty good. So, and
in the battle damaged,
sure,
Enterprise. Yeah. Oh, you know what? A moment I really love is when when the Enterprise is docking and everyone in the waiting room and it's just like stands up because they're just like, holy shit!
And
my God.
And the woman that stands up, the camera's kind of centered on her. That's Grace Lee Whitney, and she was, Yeoman Rand. Janice Rand from the original series.
Oh yeah.
And I'd like to think that it's the same character,
Oh, it's gotta be.
Because she kind of shakes her head a little bit once she gets a look at the damage, and she's thinking, well, Kirk's done it again. Like, what's he been up to? So it's nice to see her in there. It's funny, the Klingon suits, which all the Klingon uniforms and all that stuff, they look great, but apparently Paramount refused to make new ones, and so these same uniforms and suits and Klingon, outfits were used all throughout the rest of these movies and Next Generation, and probably into, I don't know if Klingons were a big part of the other spin-off series, but Paramount just refused to make new ones, so they were just constantly.
At a certain point, they had to just start renting them from cosplayers, right? Because
maybe the commentary that I was listening to with Ronald Moore, he said, on the outside they look great, but on the inside of those costumes, they're just all duct tape and safety pins, and they smelled like hell. So
I can imagine.
So
yeah, that'd be hard to get different body types into.
Sure, I think yeah. I imagine it's kind of like football pads. Like, here's a general shoulder pad system that goes over like a normal shirt, and then had some added elements like that. But Patrick, what do you got?
Sort of along with the ship, I mentioned I really like the cloaking sequence.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was really well done, and even like the sort of distortion when it's cloaked,
Yeah,
with the stars that Kirk notices. Luckily,
yeah.
But what doesn't hold up aside from the fashion, I mean, I just didn't like the whole falling into the lava thing.
Oh, yeah, that was a bad effect, yeah.
I knew it was going to be bad, but I did like the explosions on the planet. I thought they were decent.
The fire stuff was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The overall Genesis planet, though, I think is very made for TV.
Yeah. You can tell there's like a matte painting in the background.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, all of Genesis, I think, looks kind of bad.
Yeah, because it all looks like it looks like a TV set. I mean, it's obviously not shot on location anywhere. They have a sound stage and they rigged it up.
They used the Paramount stage, and they said a lot of these, even down to the rocks and the bushes and stuff, were reused for every other episode, where they were needed. So it was just all recycled stuff. Which is it's really strange to me that the budget for this one was actually higher than the budget for Wrath of Khan. And it's like they reused so much stuff. I don't know what the money went to.
Well, I mean, they reused a lot of stuff in Wrath of Khan, though, too.
Sure.
And Wrath of Khan, it's so good that you forget. You get wrapped up into it and you're not really thinking about it, but like, there's not a lot to that movie, really.
That's true. Yeah.
It's
stuff on the bridge and
yeah. It's very nearly a bottle episode for like a movie. It's like the Breakfast Club in space.
Nice. Okay. So any pros or cons?
Pro, DeForest Kelley.
Okay.
Who I think just knocks it out of the park in this movie.
Yeah.
I think he's stellar. I think that it could have used a little bit more of him and a little less Kirk, to be honest. I think he's really great.
I think the writing, Harv Bennett's writing with Nimoy's direction, I think bring a lot of legitimacy to the story, and like you said earlier, it makes it really feel like an episode.
Mm-hmm. Feels like Star Trek.
Yeah.
And I just love the message of them becoming a family.
Sure.
I love that.
I don't know if this is a con, but I just didn't really notice the music in this movie.
Oh, okay.
Like I didn't notice like the theme, like that,
Yeah.
Like it didn't seem as cinematic.
And that's unfortunate because it is actually really good music. I've got the soundtrack, and there's some really good beats in it. It's some reused stuff because it's the same composer from Wrath of Khan, so there's some beats that are the same. But it's actually a good soundtrack. But yeah, it's not. It doesn't really stand out much.
No,
when you're watching it,
it doesn't stand out. But the movie, other than the two Enterprise moments, there aren't any good moments for a great score. It's mostly just like small incidental moments. But the music in that sequence when they're stealing the Enterprise and when the Enterprise blows up are both great.
Yeah. I had the same problem with Temple of Doom. Like I couldn't hum you a tune from that movie, but I could hum you 5 from Raiders,
Right.
So
right.
I think my con would be just Christopher Lloyd's Krug doesn't do much for me, kind of like what Patrick was saying earlier. He's got some good moments. He's got some good line readings. I love it. It's a Christopher Lloyd moment. It's not a Krug moment, but they say that, I think Kirk shows up or Kirk wants to talk to you. And he's just like, put it on screen. Like he doesn't say it in a Klingon voice or anything. It's just like he has this sober moment of, just the line delivery it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But little things like that.
I have a big, going off of that, one of my cons, why do the Klingons speak English when there's no English speakers around them?
I think, is it the
that
same?
Drives me crazy.
Yeah. Is it the same as, the Hunt for Red October, we've seen them speaking Klingon. It's been translated for us. And then anything after the fact, if we're hearing English, it's actually Klingon.
I think if they were going to do that, they shouldn't have introduced it in a scene where they were specifically speaking Klingon so that the English speakers wouldn't understand them.
Oh, okay.
Because the fact that they were speaking Klingon was part of the plot of the scene,
So
like
that
part of like, yeah, it's like there was a purpose to it. And so then later when they're just speaking English when they're by themselves, it's weird to me. I don't know. My biggest con, David, the biggest con of all. David is a terrible character. I like to just pretend that Kirk doesn't have a son.
And that's kind of how I feel. Like he doesn't bother me because he's such a little small part of this movie.
Well, and I don't like that they were sort of hinting at the idea that David and Saavik had a thing in Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
And then then they're together in this, but then, she's pon-farring with Spock while like David is, I don't know, doing whatever he's doing. I don't even know where David is at that point.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah. He just disappears.
I think he was trying to make contact with the Enterprise. I don't know. I don't remember. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
to be fair to David, she changed a lot since the Wrath of Khan movie.
Fair. Look who's talking now.
Yeah. All right. So, how about overall thoughts, ratings?
Even with the stuff that I don't love, this is my favorite Star Trek movie of the original crew. I just, it has two of my all-time favorite moments in all of Star Trek, and I love that it feels like a Star Trek, an episode of the Star Trek TV series. And I think that's a con for a lot of people, but for me, that's a pro. And I really like how, like weird and sci-fi the concept of the Genesis planet is, like the fact that it's like growing, like, it's everything's evolving on the planet really rapidly. Like that's such a weird sci-fi concept. And even if the air quote science behind it is a little like you got to kind of have to squint and just move forward. I really like all of that stuff. Like it just feels like Star Trek to me. So I'm a big fan of this.
Did you give a rating?
Or,
out of 5?
4.5 out of 5.
Wow. All right.
Cool.
Yeah. Like I said, it's my favorite one, Sure. I would probably give Wrath of Khan a 4.5 as well, because the things I don't like about that movie are different from the things I don't like about this movie.
Sure.
And the things I like about this movie I like more than the things I like about Wrath of Khan, but I think they about equal out ratings wise.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. For me, I really enjoyed this movie up until the end of Act 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sort of dropped off for me. I didn't really care that much about the battle sequence with the Klingons and the whole mystic voodoo ritual thing. I thought the beginning, like the first 2 acts, like for the most part were pretty solid. I enjoyed the quote unquote search for Spock just to see what he would look like. And the whole Bones portion of this was really interesting, I thought. That said, I'd put it at like a 3.5 though. So it was all right. I didn't hate it. It was just, I don't know, the end kind of screwed it up for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. I know exactly what you mean as far as by the third act, you're just kind of, and whatever happens,
Everything after the Enterprise blows up, it's definitely
yeah.
That's the ultimate moment, and it really feels like after that happens, they're like, oh right, we need to keep going, huh? Okay.
we still have to finish this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Star Trek 3 is a really well told story. The plot is very easy to understand. I think at the beginning when they explained that Spock's body and Spock's katra and all that stuff, at that point, I understand what needs to happen at the end of the movie. I understand that they need to get Bones and Spock together to transfer the consciousness from one to the other. So it's not some hard to understand, I guess, concept. At this point, like, everyone's been doing this so long, the actors and everyone knows what they're doing. I think the direction by Nimoy is really good. Everyone knows how to play their characters, but as the viewer, it seems like we're still seeing new things from them. I think as middle chapters go, I like it, and it makes me look forward to 4, but I think it stands on its own.
Mm-hmm.
I give it a 4.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think,
gives some fun math for you.
Yeah, I mean that gives us a 4.
Oh,
all right. Terrible title though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Should have been called The Needs of the One.
Ooh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah,
that was really good.
Yeah, you are on a roll as far as your all your writing changes. All your yeah, that would have been a great title. Yeah.
Star Trek 3: The Needs of the One.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Hell.
There's no searching.
Yeah.
Oh well, whatever. I think they probably just wanted Spock in the title. I imagine.
Yeah.
But it's fine.
All right. Well, I guess that'll do it for Star Trek 3. But now, Scott, it's kind of your time to give our listeners some information as far as where they can find you and anything you want anything you want to share and all that. So.
Okay, well, so if you like me here, you can find my other podcasts at duelinggenre.com. That's my production company and podcast network. And I host a handful of shows over there. There's a bunch of shows over there that I don't host that we just we have that are just like sort of part of our network. But I host Spider-Man Minute, which is a daily podcast where we talk about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, currently Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, 1 minute at a time. So we come out Monday through Friday, and each day we talk about 1 minute. Travis has been a guest on that show. So if you want to check it out, maybe check out the episodes he's on. And then if you like those, you can go and check out all the other ones.
No, they just need to start at the beginning. It's
all right. I mean, sure.
It's a great journey. So.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so you can check that out. I'm really proud of that show. I'm proud of the work that Zach and I do over there. And the plan is to, we're going to do all of the Sam Raimi movies, and then we're going to move on to the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and then presumably into the MCU movies. So we'll just we'll keep going through the Spider-Man movies 1 minute at a time, presumably until one of us is dead. So that's one podcast that I do. I also hosted Past Tense Back to the Future Minute, which was just like Spider-Man Minute, but with the Back to the Future movies. And that was with my co-host, Nick. We did all 3 films, and so those are all finished. And there is 340 episodes that you can go back and listen to if you want. That was a lot of fun. And then since 2009, I've been doing The Doctor's Companion, which is a Doctor Who podcast. So if you like Doctor Who, you can go check that out. I've been doing that for a really long time. It's my longest running podcast ever.
It's amazing.
Yeah, a lot less episodes, but it doesn't come out every day. So, there you go. Right now, we talk about the new episodes as they're released. And then during the off season, we do we do sort of like chunks of episodes where we talk about every story, every episode of Doctor Who, one Doctor at a time. Okay. So we'll talk about we talked about the first story from every Doctor. So we'll go the first story of the first Doctor, first story of the second Doctor, and then we get all the way to the end and we start over and we do the second story of the first Doctor, the second story of the second Doctor. Cool. And that's
a
sort
cool
of
mechanic.
Yeah, and so that's our structure with that, and it's a lot of fun. And with the classic Who stuff, we do more recaps than with the new Who stuff because we presume that a lot of people probably aren't watching along with us with the classic Who stuff. So we try to kind of recap what's happening while it's happening and kind of poking fun at it. It's like it's very lovingly done, kind of MST3K kind of thing. So we have fun with it. We make fun of the bad actors and the cheesy effects and the silly storylines and things like that. But it all comes from us deeply, deeply loving everything that is Doctor Who.
Oh, that's great.
So we do that, and then of course, coming up later this year, I think Spider-Man wraps up in October, our first season of Spider-Man, and we'll go on hiatus there. And then Nick and I, my Back to the Future co-host, are starting Cornetto Minute, where we're going to be talking about the Edgar Wright films, 1 minute at a time, specifically the Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End, the ones that he did with Simon Pegg.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah,
and especially because I know you guys are doing the a rewatch of Spaced.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of before that. Is that a Patreon exclusive?
No.
Okay.
That just starts in September. We've been recording that, but we're trying to bank it.
Great.
That'll start in September, and those episodes will come out every other day leading up to the first minute of Shaun of the Dead.
Perfect. I've never gone through Spaced, so it'll be a first time for me. So that'll be, I'm sure, really helpful to watch an episode and then listen to your, you guys talk about it. That'll help out. So
no, that's really great. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to that. Edgar Wright is my favorite filmmaker of all time, and breaking it down from I've directed short films, and I'm a screenwriter, and so breaking it down with my writing partner Nick, breaking those movies down and figuring out like how they work and why they work and what works about them, and just kind of breaking all of that down is going to be a lot of fun. I think with Cornetto Minute, usually we have guests. Like Back to the Future had lots of guests, basically almost every episode. Spider-Man Minute, same thing, guests on almost every episode. I think Cornetto Minute is going to be a lot less guests, because it's getting very difficult to schedule this stuff. And knowing that we're going to get back into guests with Spider-Man 2, it would be nice to be able to not balancing guests on the Spaced rewatch episodes and guests on Spider-Man has been an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
And I've got something happening that I haven't announced yet that is going to take up the majority of my time. And so as a result, I think we're going to do less guests on Cornetto Minute, but
gotcha.
Nick and I are fun. So
yeah.
It's good. And then the coup de grace, the thing that we're most proud of is Geek by Night, which is an original podcast series. It's like an audio drama, but it's not as throwbacky. There's not like a narrator going, "The shadow knows." It's not that kind of thing. It's very much we try to write it as modern as possible, and we try our best to not bring attention to the fact that you're only listening to it. So hopefully it plays that way. It's kind of a show that we write in the style of like a Buffy or something like that. A Buffy or like the DCW shows or stuff like that.
Nice.
And it's like a comedy drama about a bunch of friends, nerdy friends who run a comic book store together, and they get superpowers. And it's about like being a nerd and wishing for this sort of thing all the time. Because one of the things that inspired the show is that we got really sick of seeing superhero movie after superhero movie after superhero movie about people who get superpowers who don't want them. And like,
Sure.
wouldn't it be cool? Like, if I got superpowers, it would be like the most amazing thing ever. And so we decided to make a show about that. And at the same time, it's also a show about transitioning from your 20s into your 30s and sort of that concept of how our generation is always accused of never growing up, and how we still like the things that we liked when we were kids, and kind of like dealing with that. And that part of it comes from my hatred of the movie 40-Year-Old Virgin, which is just the worst message to ever give anyone. It's a terrible movie and no one should ever see it. I
don't think I've ever watched it all. So,
it's literally a movie about like, if you're a nerd, you're never going to get laid until you get rid of all of your nerd stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then he gets rid of all of his nerd stuff and then gets laid.
Gotcha.
That's what that movie's about. And this is the opposite of that. This is trying to be a very positive thing about nerd culture and about getting a handle on being an adult when you still like things that people think are silly and immature, but also superpowers. So,
Nice.
There's a lot going on there. And so if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please check it out. We have never been more proud of anything. So if just check out the first episode. And if you don't love it within like 10 minutes, it might not be for you, and that's okay, but give it the 10 minutes.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool. How many episodes are you guys in on that?
We have 14.
Okay.
And then we have 4 more to go.
Nice.
So it's going to be an 18 episode first season, and then we'll be going on hiatus for the foreseeable future because we have a Patreon goal for season 2.
Right on.
And if we don't hit that, because we haven't paid anyone for this first season, and we want to be able to start paying people. So
absolutely.
So we have a Patreon for that, but I'm not going to plug that here.
Well,
listen to the shows and then decide if you want to be a Patreon supporter.
Well, I will, because I love what you guys do with Spider-Man Minute, and so I'm a Patreon member, and it works out great because it not only benefits me for the Spider-Man content, but all of the Dueling Genre podcasts. So Lord of the Rings and all of them. I get that like bonus content. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
So for others that don't know, what is Patreon exactly?
It's like a basically you subscribe to it, and you subscribe at like a certain like monetary value. So you'll give like $5 a month or $10 a month or whatever. $5 a month opens up everything on our Patreon. We don't do anything else. When you get to the higher levels, you can get like extra things like guest spots on the podcasts or things like that. But $5 a month gives you all of the bonus content that we put out on that is exclusive for our Patreon members. But yeah, so it's like $5 a month, and you help out the show, and then you get all this bonus podcast stuff like movie reviews and things like that we do.
Yeah,
so
very cool.
Yeah. It's kind of like a Kickstarter, but it's ongoing, and you're just supporting. And the way I looked at it a couple years ago, with different shows, like I decided, I'm getting all this content for free, and podcasts have become my all-time favorite form of entertainment now. I look forward to listening. And the nature of my job, I'm able to listen to 8 hours, 9 with my commute. Like I can listen to 9 hours of podcast a day, and it just felt like, well, I should give back, where I can. And
I think that's the best way to look at it. Because if you look at it based on like the content that you're getting on Patreon, I still think it's worth it, but
totally.
For us, but if you look at that as bonus stuff, and what you're really paying for is the stuff that you're getting for free, like, $5 a month, you're stretched out amongst all of the things that you're getting. It's a lot. So, and it helps us immensely. Paying all of our people for a second season of Geek by Night.
Well, right on.
That would be awesome. We would love to do a second season, but yeah, I'm writing the finale right now, and it is a nightmare, but we're gonna get it done.
Very cool.
Yep. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I think it's time for us to wrap up. So if you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, share it, send us feedback. You can do that at reelcomicheroes@gmail.com. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at reelcomicheroes. So please leave us a nice review on iTunes, which we will share on the show. And Patrick, what are we looking at next time?
I don't know. I got to find out who I'm going to call. Oh, Ghostbusters.
Nice. Very nice.
Solid.
Are you sure we shouldn't just skip it? We can move on to, like, I think Supergirl's coming up next. Or
how dare you, sir? This is like, I've seen this movie like 100,000 times. Yeah. This is easily my most geeky movie. Like, like you know all the weird random like garbage monsters in Star Wars. This is that for me.
Nice. Well, I look forward to just kind of taking a back seat on that episode and just observing you like geeking out over some Ghostbusters. So
it's gonna be glorious.
Yeah, we're right on.
All right then. I guess that'll do it for Trek time.
I think so. Scott, it's been a pleasure, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on and letting me geek out about Star Trek 3.
Anytime. Yeah.
Yep, it was great.
All right.
Well, thanks for listening, everybody.
Yep, we'll see you later.
Ghosts.
Hello, Ghostbusters.
They're real.
You do?
They're mean.
You have?
They're here. Ghostbusters.
Hey, anybody see a ghost?
They catch the ghost that won't stay dead. They're armed. They're dangerous.
Try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
All right, that's bad. Okay. All right, important safety tip. Thanks, Egon.
They're professionals.
Oh, I'm the chairman of the largest paranormal removal company in America.
You see it? They're all that stands between you and the end of the world.
This city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion. Real wrath of God type stuff. Exactly. Fire and brimstone coming down from the sky. Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Your girlfriend lives in the corner penthouse of Spook Central.
You want this body?
Is this a trick question?
Stick. Hold! Get him up! Smoke! Make him hard! Ready!
Ghostbusters. Starring Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, Harold Ramis, Rick Moranis. Ghostbusters.
We came, we saw, we kicked it.